Hello everyone and welcome back. So let us continue from where we left off last time. So we had implemented this snippet details page where we were showing the SDK that this snippet was built using, whether it is Maui or Xamarin. We have the number of stars, the main hero image, and then what all platforms it is supporting, the name of the author, some description about the snippet, the categories that this snippet belongs to, and then the view on GitHub functionality. Now, one of the last things that we will do over here to display extra information is some additional images. So here in this particular case, we are only showing the hero image, but what if the developer of this snippet has submitted more images? So how can we display those more images? For this, let us actually go to our app model, and if we inspect our snippet, we are getting the list of images under image. And for the hero image, what we did, we said that we are going to take only the first one and we are going to return the image URI. So in this particular case, let's actually go ahead and create another public property. So this is going to be list of the image. We can call it other images, and this only needs to have a getter method. So we can say images if they exist dot skip one, because we have already taken the first one as the hero image. There is no need to display this image again in the list. And then we can say dot to list. So we can return the list of other images barring this first one as other images. And now I can go back to my snippet details page, and under this we can display other images. And for this we are going to be using a collection view. So I can use a collection view, and for the properties I am going to set its height to 220 points or 220 pixels. I'm going to give it a margin of say 12 from top and bottom, and I am going to bind it to my item source, which is coming from my binding. And we just created the other images, so it's going to come from the other images, and we can set mode equals to one way. Now, one of the things that I also want to do is, before I go any further, I want to make sure that this list of images is only displayed if there are any other images other than this one image. If there are no images, I do not want to be taking up this extra space of 220 points or 220 pixels. So for this, let's actually go back, and for those of you who have watched the Beyond Monkeys 1 series, what we did create, we created a list extension, and we created is it on the okay, we do not have the enumeration exist item count. So let's actually go ahead and implement that. So we can implement that. So it's no, I think I recall, it is not an extension, it is a converter that we created. Yes, so we have created this enumeration contains element converter, which basically takes your list, and if this list has any number of elements, it returns true value, otherwise it returns false. So we will be making use of this. So for this, let's actually go back to our page, and we can add some resources at the top of our page. Let me bring in this converter as a resource which we can use. So I'm just going to bring this. It is complaining that it does not know. So let's add the namespace to our Maui apps framework. So this is where we have defined this, and I'm just giving it a name which is CVT visible on item count. And once I have this, I can go back to my collection view, and I can set the is visible property for that. And for the is visible property, I'm just going to use this whole enumeration as such, and I'm going to use the converter. So I'm just binding it to the same data set, which is the other images list, and I'm saying use this converter CVT visible on item count. So what happens is, if this other images contain anything, it will display the list or it will take up this space, otherwise this whole thing will be invisible. And for the layout, we are going to use horizontal layout, and we can put in some spacing of say 20 points or 20 pixels in between. And for my item template, so let's actually go ahead and define the item template, collection view dot item template. And this is going to be data template, and for my data type, this is going to be the list of my images, so models image. So each item is going to be an image, and inside this is where I need to display my images. Now since I'm going to use gesture recognizer later on, so let me actually do something. Let me bring in, or let me put everything in a border, and I will explain why I am doing this. So I'm just creating a border with no padding, no stroke thickness, height of 220 and the width of 103. And then in this, I'm going to put in my snippet image. So this is where we already created this reusable control snippet image, and this is going to show us using the image URI along with the caching this actual image. So let's actually run and see this in action. So let this load up. So now if I go to Essentials UI Kit, and if I scroll down, you will see it is bringing in list of all the images, and you can see using the caching and the control that we created, it is nicely displaying these images. If I go to something else, let's say WhatsApp UI clone, if I go down, it is loading these images with this visual feedback as well. So this is what we have done. If something does not have the images, which I know in one of my snippets, this is one of my snippet, if I recall correctly, there is no image that I submitted other than this hero image. So you can see it is not displaying anything. If I remove this is visible, then it will show up this space of 220 points or pixels unnecessarily, and it will not be showing anything. Now what we need to do is, once we click on something, so in this particular case, if I go and click on this, right now if I'm clicking, nothing is happening. What we want to do, we want to navigate to a new page. So for this, let me stop this, let me minimize this, go back to our view models. In the snippet details page, let me create a new relay command. I'm going to call it navigate to image viewer page relay command. So it's just navigate to image viewer page, and passing in the image, it is expecting an image URL, and once that is done, it is just going to image viewer page, creating a new instance of the image viewer page, and I'm using the model page for that, and passing in the image URL. Right now it is complaining that it does not take any constructor. So this is what we can actually go ahead and we can fix this. So for the time being, what I can do, I can go to this particular page. If we go to my image viewer page, I can change it to take a string. So string of, let's call it image URL. And if I save this, go back, so it has stopped complaining. So this is working fine for now. And now I need to call this relay command. This is where I added in this border control, because I wanted to add a gesture or a tab gesture recognizer so that I can execute that relay command. So here I'm just adding the gesture recognizer, and using the tab gesture, I'm saying, okay, call this command, which is navigate to image viewer page command, the one that we just created, and passing it the source is the relative source where the ancestor type is snippet details page view model. So using wherever we find this snippet details page view model, on that source execute the navigate to image viewer page command and pass in the image URI from this particular item. So let me show that to you. If I go to our snippet details page, and I'm just going to put a breakpoint over here, and let's run this and see how it looks like. So this is loading up. If I go to this page, go down, if I click on the first one, you will notice it hits this breakpoint and it says that my image URL is this particular image URL, which is detailpage.jpg. And if I continue, it will open up this second page. Of course, I cannot go back because I have removed the buttons. This is what we will be implementing in the next step. So let's go ahead and implement that functionality. Our snippet details page for the time being is completed. There is nothing more we need to do. The view model is completed. In the details page, we will come back and we will touch base on it to add the parallax effect in a while. But for the time being, let me go ahead and close this and let's go to our image viewer page and let's implement the view model first. Let me clean it up. So this view model is going to be very, very simple. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to derive it from app view model base. And now it is complaining that this constructor is not correct. So let's go ahead and fix this constructor. So this is the default constructor because it is expecting based on the base view model that the API service and the setting service needs to be passed. And in this one, the only thing I can do is I can say this dot title is equal to say image viewer. This is what we want to display, and I can then override the on navigated to. So on navigated to, and on this on navigated to, I need to store the image URL. So for that, let me go ahead and create an observable property because I don't want to create the getters, setters, change notification. So I'm just going to bring this in and change this to partial. And then I'm going to say this image URL, the field that we have just created is equal to the parameters because it is of type string, the actual URL. So this is what this is equal to. So I'm just going to save this. And then this image URL is what we can bind in our image viewer page. So let us go to our image viewer page. Now, one of the things we need to do instead of the content page, we need to derive it from the view base, and this will be our image viewer page view model. And I also need to call the base function because this is what will get used to passing the actual image URL to the view model, the one that we just created. So this is our page and we need to fix it over here as well. So let's go ahead and fix it. I'm again going to rely on what we did earlier. So maybe we can go to our snippet details page is fine. So let me bring in this view base. So I'm going to derive it from view base. Let me clean it up a bit so that it looks nice. I don't need the title. I do not need anything to be displayed over here. And I need a bit of namespaces. So let me copy these namespaces from here, the views and the view models. So let's bring in these views and the view models, and then I'm going to again bring in some other information. So let's go ahead and bring in all this information. This thing is enough. So for this, we are going to be using image viewer page view model. Image viewer page view model, and my data type is the same, navigation bar, and the type is model this time. So that's all we need to do. And then I can bring in for my page content, this is where I can define my content. Let me close this, put some content in here. And now if I run this application, you will notice it will take us to the next page. Of course, it is not going to be displaying anything at the moment. It is not going to be showing any image because it is an empty page. We have not done anything. But just to show you that we now have the model functionality and we can keep on going back and so on. So let me go back over here, scroll down, click on the first one. It takes us to this page with the actual image. If I click on this, it should show the other image. So how are we going to implement this functionality? So for this functionality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me stop that, and I'm going to put this in a grid. Now right now I'm using two rows. The first row is taking up the whole space and the bottom row is taking up only 24 pixels. I will show you where we are going to be making use of this. So in this, all I'm going to do in the very first row, I am just going to be putting an image. So we just have an image. Let's clean this up. So using aspect fill, fit, and the image source is the image URL which we have defined in our view model. So now if I run this, we will be able to see this image on the screen. While this is running, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up. So everything is properly indented. So now if I go back to this, click on the first image, you can see it shows up this first image. If I go to maybe the fourth image, it shows up the fourth image, and you can notice since we have already cached these images, it is not loading these images again from the backend. All these images are already cached. So this part is working. Now one of the things which is not working is I cannot do this pinch to zoom. See, I'm trying to do pinch to zoom. It is not working. So let's actually go ahead and fix it. And that is the reason I brought in this second row where I wanted to bring in this simple label in the second row which says just a tip that you can pinch to zoom on the image. So how are we going to achieve this pinch to zoom? For this, I am not going to spend any time on this. If you just search on pinch to zoom using MAUI, it will take you to this first link which is recognize a pin gesture, and they have a very good documentation of how the pin gesture recognizer works. So you can follow this whole instruction set, or in my case you can simply copy this whole container that they have created, which is the pinch to zoom container. So you can copy paste this whole code, and this is what I'm going to be doing as well. Now this pinch to zoom, we may be using it in different applications. So the best is to create it in your framework class. So under UI, I can go to controls and I can add this pinch to zoom container, the one that we just copied. I just copy pasted it as such, no code change, just added it as such. So once we have this, now I can wrap this whole thing in a, let me define a namespace which we'll do later, and I say pinch to zoom container, and it is complaining that it cannot recognize. So let's add the namespace which is coming from this apps framework UI controls, the one that we just created over here. And I'm going to move this whole thing, this whole image, let's indent it, and I'm going to move this whole thing inside. So this now hosts our image. And for this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it to use the first row and taking up the whole space. And now if I run this, you will notice that we have the pinch to zoom working on this as well. So this pinch to zoom container, it is already available to you. I shared the code on my GitHub. So under the apps framework project, you have full access to that code. So let's quickly see that in action. If I go click on any of the images, and now if I use option, I can pinch to zoom on any image. If I open this one, here we go. So we can pinch to zoom. So this part is now working. The last thing that we need to do in this whole thing, let me close that, is we need to implement this parallax effect. So let me open up the running application or the full final version of the application and show you what I mean. So you will notice the moment I start scrolling up, you see the image starts going smaller and smaller and at the top, and when I scroll back, it keeps on becoming bigger and bigger until a certain threshold that I have defined. Now to do this, what we need to do, let's go back to our snippets details page. And one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to be working with this row. You remember I said that I did not define this as the traditional. I could have simply said on this grid, row definitions equal to 48, 360, 64 asterisk. I could have done that, but I did not do that because I want to give it a name. So let me give it a name, which is image row definition, and I'm going to be working I'm going to be manipulating this row height. And the other thing I'm going to do is, if we go back to our scroll view, on our scroll view we have an event which is scrolled. So I am going to just work with this event, and this event is what is going to help me achieve my scrolling. Now, one of the things that I am going to do is just to make sure, so you notice that the image height I'm using, the ratio is 400 to 188 or 188 to 400. So for this, I'm just going to declare another private variable double, which is the image ratio, which is 188 divided by 400, so that as and when I shrink or expand my top row, it should be following the same image ratio, because I don't want to distort this part. So you can see over here, see, it is moving up and down in the same ratio. So this is what I want to achieve. That's why I'm declaring this image ratio. And all I need to do over here is, so I can say where scroll view is my sender as scroll view. So this is the scroll view that I'm getting. My scrolling space, let's say, what is my scrolling space, equals to scroll view why is it not scroll view dot, this is my scroll view. So scroll view dot, I know I have missed an R over here, scroll view. So on this scroll view, I have my content size dot height. So this is my height, and I am taking this, and what I'm saying, this is my whole height minus my current height. So what is the current height that I have? So my scroll view dot height. So this is my whole height minus the current height, and then I'm going to find out what is my scroll y location at the moment. So my scroll y is equal to e dot scroll y. So this is the event args that we are getting, scrolled event args that we are getting. And let's actually put this in the new line. Once I have this information, one of the things I can do, I can say if my scrolling space is greater than 0. So if my scrolling space is greater than 0, then I can say just return. I don't want to do anything. So what is this scrolling space? So as and when, so here when I'm scrolling, if there is more space, if there is no more space, sorry, then I can return. Only if there is space, when we are going like this, then I can stop. And then I'm just going to bring in a piece of code and explain to you what I'm doing. I'm just going to now manipulate based on this scroll property. I'm just going to go to my image row definition, the one that we put over here, which is at the top, image row definition. I'm just changing its height to a new grid length, and whatever is the current height value minus this scroll y that I computed. Whatever is this, but I'm limiting it to 120 and 360. So 360 is the maximum height that I want to give, and if you see when I scroll down, 120 is the minimum height I want to give. So it will limit it between 120 and 360 and 120. So this is my 120, this area over here, and this is the 360. So I want to restrict it to this range. And then once I have set the size, I'm going to change my image height to my image height, the current image height minus the scroll y. And again, I'm limiting it to 160 and 400. This is the size I'm giving because I am taking up, if you recall, I'm taking up this 360 plus 64. I'm taking up this whole height. I'm overspanning this. So I want to limit it between 160 and 400, and then for my width, whatever height I have computed multiplied by this image ratio, which is my golden ratio in this particular case. So always the image remains in the same aspect ratio. So that's all we need to do. And with this, now let me run the application. So let's see the application running, and then there are just a couple of things I will just show you and explain to you what those are. If required, you can implement those in your apps. So let me click on this one, and it is not scrolling. Why is it not scrolling? So it is coming over here. Let me run. So let's check my code. So this is my scroll view. This is fine. Sorry, my mistake. I put this as greater than. It should be less than. Only if the scrolling space is less than equal to 0, then I return. So basically I have hit the maximum limit of my scroll. Then I want to stop. So let's go back over here, and now when we scroll, you can see when I'm scrolling up, so it stops at this 120 that I put in. What is this? 120, yes. So it does not go smaller than that. And then once I'm scrolling, which is fine. The moment I go outside this bound, now I can start increasing it, but then I stop at 360 height, the original one. So this is how we implement the scrolling functionality. Now a couple of other things very quickly I will explain to you. Let me just show this. Perhaps I can show it to you in action as well. So let's actually look at this one. So right now I'm using the light theme, and you can see on this particular page it is showing the black status bar, which is perfectly fine. But if I go to my settings and if I change my theme to dark, which I assume I can change it from where I can change it from general. So how do I change accessibility? Anyways, I cannot find this. But to handle that, what we can do, we can always force our application to run in the light mode, because right now this application is running in the light mode and it always displays this dark or black status bar because my background colors are lighter. For this, what you can do, you can go back to your platforms folder, and on Android you do not need to worry about this. On iOS you can go to your info.plist. Maybe I can open it up using let's say Visual Studio Code, and all I need to do is just add this UI user interface style as light under my info plist dictionary section. So I just need to bring this in. UI user interface style is light. Now I can simply save this, close, and now what will happen is every time, irrespective of what my dark or light theme, whichever I'm using on my device, it will always display this using the light theme, which is the dark text color. Another thing is, which right now you notice I'm using an iPhone 14 simulator, so everything is coming out to be fine. That is because if we go to our views and if I look at the base page, which is the page base, I have given this status row definition to be 16 pixels or points on Android and 36 on iOS. So this covers your phones with the notch, or the older up to iPhone 8 which did not have this notch. It covers all of this. So that is where this whole thing was your notch, the whole thing was your status bar. So it covers for both of them. The moment we are talking about iPhone 14 or 14 Pros, then what happens is your dynamic island pill is coming somewhere over here, and it is partially covering this text. So what we need to do, we need to push it down even further. So how can we do that? For this, what we can do, if I go to my page base CS file, I can just bring in a simple property which I can dynamically compute. So I can say, just say, call this property has dynamic island, and then I will use the device info dot model, and then on this model one I will check if the platform is iOS, only check it for iOS, and the device info starts with iPhone 15 comma or iPhone 16 comma. So iPhone 15 comma is basically your iPhone 14 Pros and your iPhone 14 Pro Maxes. I have just put in iPhone 16 comma as well, so that at least next year when the iPhone 15 comes in, it is expected that all iPhone 15s, irrespective whether they are pros or not pros, they will have the dynamic island. So I have just put it over here as a precautionary measure. If you don't want, you can simply go ahead and you can remove this and only check for iPhone 15 models, which is your iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Maxes. But your current iPhone 14, the regular and the iPhone 14 Plus, they are coming with the iPhone 14 tag. So we don't need to check for that. I only need to check for this. And then what I can do over here somewhere in my constructor, just before this, I can maybe say something like a very dirty fix. Let me bring in some piece of code. So this is a very dirty fix. I can say if has dynamic island, then my status row definition dot height equals to, which I had set to for iOS 36 and 16 for Android. And now I'm saying change this height to the current height plus 16. So push this even further down the line. So this essential UI kit will be starting somewhere over here, and your dynamic pill will be here. So it is not going to interfere. So that is it. This is our, let me save everything. This is our Snppts application. Today we have completed this series. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to learn more, please consider subscribing to this channel and give a like to this video or this whole series. Just one thing, most of you must be aware, I am leaving .NET MAUI. I have been struggling with MAUI for almost 8-9 plus months now, and there are just so many stability issues, both with .NET 6 version as well as the .NET 7 GA. So I think I have had enough. I could not be able to produce an application and push it to the app stores or the Google Play Store. I could not do that, unfortunately, and this is not something that I want to do. So with this, I started investigating Flutter, and I was literally amazed. I even blogged about my experience of using Flutter. I in fact took the same application which I built using Beyond Monkey Series 1, where I built that YouTube clone application. I'm building the same application as such with Flutter, in fact with much more ease, no bugs, 100% stable. I'm not finding any issues. So that is the reason I'm moving away from MAUI and into Flutter. I really hope that .NET MAUI gets stabilized very soon, because Xamarin is anyways dead, or at least we only have another 1 year plus 2-3 months more since it goes out of support. So I really hope, for the benefit of all of us, that .NET MAUI stabilizes. For those who are interested in making a move to Flutter or even investigating about Flutter, please check my channel. I have created another playlist which is called Flutter Journey, where I'm explaining from a Xamarin perspective how easy it is to create a a simple Flutter application. When I say simple, it is not so simple application. It is quite a complex application that I'm building over there, and you can understand how easy it is to even build a complex application. So please check that out if you are interested. And with this, thank you very much for watching this whole series. I hope you enjoyed this, and this was a useful information throughout. Thank you all. Have a good day.